So in this section, we're going to talk about people or yourself who are driven by individuality, and what does that really mean? Individuality means you are driven by nice cars, nice homes, nice clothes, nice jewelry, recognition, name everywhere, and every single thing. Anybody proposes you, the first thing you say is, what's in it for me? Now, for some of you guys that are watching this saying, well, Pat, I've watched the other 3 courses as well. Let's just say madness, purpose, advancement, whichever course you watch, you may be saying, Pat, isn't everybody driven by individual reasons? Like, what's wrong with being driven by individual selfish reasons? Nothing's wrong with that. I'm driven by it. But there's a few things. This is one of those things that drives you. It could potentially have a cap, and it could cost you a lot of relationships, and there's a big downside to it, which we'll cover that at the end. But there's a few things I want you to think about. Almost every kid is born, and we don't want to share things with our peers or our siblings. That's mine. It's my toy. No, it's mine. Give it to me. It's mine. It's mine. It's mine. Now, one of my sons, he will go somewhere and buy ice cream, we'll buy something. He'll always say, oh, we have to get one for this, and we have to get one for this, for Tico and Senna, Dylan, right? So we'll go and we'll say, okay, get one for them. And we'll come back and say, hey, Daddy and I went here, but we also got you this. I didn't teach him that. That's him, right? If it was me, I would say, here's my ice cream, and I'm eating the ice cream. That's how we are as kids, right? As we age, this should go lower and lower and lower because life changes, phases change. We're young, all we're thinking about is friends and playing. Then we start playing sports. We learn you better be a teammate or else you can't win a championship by yourself. And then you go and you're like, I probably need a tutor. I need help from the right teachers or else I may not get this degree. Then you get a job and you try to get to the top by yourself. You say, I kind of need support from that person and her and the front desk and the process. If I don't, that person doesn't like me. I got to get them to like me or else you'll learn. Life will teach you. You get married, it can't be all about you. It's got to be about your spouse. Then you have kids and you understand what happens, right? But regardless, there are some that are purely driven by this. So if that's you, what are the pros and cons of this? And if you're driving somebody that's driven by this, how do you drive them to the next level? So first thing I will tell you when it comes down to this, the recognition, all that other stuff. Almost every time I've spoken to somebody that's driven by individuality, the first thing I have to do, and I do this with everybody anyways, but the first thing I have to do is I have to find out what moves you. I have to find out what your dreams are. I have to find out what gets you going. I remember one time there was a guy that we were working with, an insurance guy, who came in and he says, hey, questions are asked, why are you doing this business? Because I want to buy a Harley Davidson. How much is this Harley Davidson? $30,000. What other reasons do you have? That's it, I want to get a Harley Davidson. Great. Okay. We didn't think much of it. But he started doing the business. Next thing you know, he ended up getting the Harley Davidson. The moment he got the Harley Davidson, a year later, guess what happened to him? Nobody ever saw him ever again. A month later, he gets a call saying, hey, we noticed you got the Harley Davidson. Your dreams are becoming a reality. We haven't seen you then. He said, but that's why I got started, just to get the Harley Davidson. And I already got what I wanted, so I'm done. I'm good. So the challenge is the following. Those who are driven by individual reasons, one of the biggest problems is the moment you cross off what you were really shooting for, if you don't immediately replace it with 3 new things, it's going to be a plateau, a distraction all over the place. So yes, you reach new milestones, you need to find new milestones. So let's just say it's your kid or a salesperson that's reporting to you or yourself. Every time when I get this, I want to get this Mercedes S500. Great, you got it. You don't do nothing for 2-3 months, sales is going to drop. When I get to this much, I'm going to buy this house. Great, you buy it, but you don't replace it with 3 new, it's going to be a drop off. So key element of anyone driven by individuality, things got to be replaced. Goals that are reached need to be replaced with new ones ASAP. Every day becomes like a week if you don't replace those goals with someone else because they're fully distracted and bored out of their minds. Either you need to replace that for them or you need to replace that for yourself or else you're going to plateau. You may be watching this right now going like this, so crazy, Pat saying this. I bought the house, I got the wife, I got the kids, I got the car, I got the jewelry, I got $1 million in the bank, and I'm bored out of my mind because you don't have your next 3. You need to stop and go figure out your next 3 ASAP or for your peers. Kids do bad things. We do bad things when we don't have targets we're aiming at. Adults also do bad things when you don't have targets they're aiming at. So let's continue. Now, recognition. Say I'm driven by recognition. Don't try to change me. So, well, it's not good that you're driven by recognition. No. Look at your office or your family environment or wherever you're doing a business and see if that company, the office, is gamified. What do you mean by gamified? Is there a leaders bulletin everywhere? Is there a top 10 list? Is there a top 20 list? Is there a top 50 list? Is there a top 5 list? Is there a leaders bulletin anywhere for people to know who they're competing against for you. So you may look around your office and say, you know what? That guy's driven by individuality. I don't know how to drive him. Rather than you learning how to drive this person that's individual, you're trying to change them, and you can't. People are born certain ways, and life typically changes, and the change of being selfish less doesn't happen overnight, and typically you and I cannot do it. You can do it for yourself, but to others, it's a very gradual decrease of selfishness that we will experience through life. This is what happens when you get married, death in a family, loss of a loved one, a child, a new major life-changing event, new responsibilities. Certain things will cause that, but you can't do it. So rather than trying to change people who are not driven by individuality, simply create an environment where they have the next target, a competitive, a leader's bulletin, something to get after, because they're constantly wanting the next thing to get recognition for. This recognition could be sitting down with your kids and saying, hey, if you do X, Y, Z, you're gonna get this. Really? Yes. This can be, hey, if you do X, Y, Z, I'm gonna give you that office in a corner. No way. By the way, half the Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, top real estate companies, Compass, name them. Half of them say the number one producer for 1 year will get the corner office. And everybody wants to say, I got the corner office. Why do you think people fight for that? Individuality. They want that corner office. So the clients come and they say, hey, let me take you to my corner office. I got the corner office, corner office, corner office. How do you think corner office gets so much weight? Because whoever drove that office knew how to get everybody competing for that corner office that person wants. If you don't have that kind of an environment, how the hell is somebody that's driven by individuality going to fight for that corner office? If you all of a sudden like, oh, anybody can take that office, you missed out on the entire opportunity of creating value of why that corner office has so much value. Cul-de-sac has value. It's a form of a corner office. I have the house in the cul-de-sac, right? When people say the last house in a cul-de-sac, just come in a community all the way to the back. So now, as you, individual watching this, saying, well, Pat, how do I drive somebody who is driven by individuality? It's very simple. The language of the leader driving somebody that's driven by individuality is constantly painting the picture of what it could look like if you do X, Y, Z. What does that mean? Hey, son, listen. You go practice such and such. You know what could happen by the end of the season? What? You could end up being the captain of the team. No way. Yeah, and on the captain of the team, when you get that baseball card that the team makes, guess what it says next to your name? What? Captain. Now, if you say that to somebody that could care less about that, they're going to be like, yeah, I don't care that. They're not driven by individuality. You got to create something else that's another one of these things, right? But if you say that to one of your kids and you say, can you imagine if the baseball card says captain on the bottom of it? It's going to say captain? Yes, your kid is driven by individuality. If you say that to one of your guys and say, hey, what? If you go out there and become number one this month, I'm going to change that parking spot that we have. You know the whole thing that's white? Yes. I'm going to change that. I'm going to put number one producer, and I'm going to put whatever color you want, and I'm going to put your name on it, except it can't be blue or red because we'll get a ticket. It's got to be different color. Oh, that's awesome. I want that. You say that to somebody that's driven by, it's going to look, dude, I really could care less. I'll park in the back anyways. You can give that to anybody you want. So it may not work with some people. You have to be certain that this person is driven by individuality. Now let's go to the next part. So let me give a complete different perspective on individuality as well. So far, all we've talked about is cars, houses, all this recognition, all this stuff, right? Okay, but individuality could also be the mother that all she thinks about is herself and her kids, where it's, I want to take care of what's mine, which is what? My kids, right? That's a form of individuality. Individuality could also be the person that's sitting there saying, look, I need $3 million in a bank because I'm 50 years old and I only have 15 more years, and at $3 million in a bank, I'm going to get 4% rate of return. That's $120,000 a year income. I can retire for the rest of my life. So don't get individuality just from the perspective of it's selfish, it's all this, it's all that. No, it's we also have certain desires that we need to get fulfilled, right? Ourselves. And it could be painted in a different way. So if that's you, for me, when I was coming up and I'm driven, an element of me is individuality, I have to have every visual of what drives me around me. The family, the cars, the travel, the respect, the accolades, the savings, the baseball cards, the collectible cards. I just recently had Peter Tunney make a custom piece for me in my house that's like 5 feet tall right when you walk into the house. And when you look at this thing, it's about stuff that moves me. Very interesting things in there. It tells the story of where I came from with airplane Lufthansa, baseball cards, the video games I used to play. These are all individual to me, but it drives me when I see it. even though some of them have to do with purpose, madness, and advancement. There's part of it still is individuality. But I do want to spend the rest of the time, this is the only one that I want to spend more time on the downside rather than the upside. So let's go to the downside. Here's a few things about those who are driven by individuality, what they tend to be. Typically, you know, you have to keep in mind that somebody that's driven by individuality, there could be loners at times. They could not make the best employees because sometimes they're independent contractors. You can't tell them what to do. Holding them accountable is sometimes challenging. You can't tell me what to do. It's like extremely sensitive, walking on eggshells. They have a hard time keeping relationships long term. It's a challenging time because it's always, you know, it's me, me, me. Sometimes people, oh, that guy's going to take this from me. That guy's going to take that from me. It's in their own head, individuality. Sometimes there's that lonely, there's that things that they go through. So if you are dealing with somebody that's driven by individuality, if you're trying to give them counsel, you have to be extra careful on what words you use. The wrong word can automatically get them to go into this mode and you can't move them if you take them to this place. The wrong word, one word can get them to this place and you lose them. I remember early on when I was coming up and I'm helping a lot of guys that I'm working with, I would say one thing, and all of a sudden I'm seeing this guy, what happened to you? You went from a guy that was on fire to all of a sudden you've locked, because I said a word. I used a word that didn't move him. And I had to kind of come back and see what triggered him to adjust that. So you have to understand that, and if you're watching this yourself and you are somebody that's extremely high, like you got a score that's 80 plus individuality, that majority of what you do is all about you, you're probably an extremely sensitive person. And some tells you, maybe some people around you say it's kind of walking on eggshells sometimes around you because God forbid you say the wrong thing, you can kind of be mean or maybe even block people off and maybe passive aggressive to be away. That may not be. You may say, Pat, that's not me. But some who are driven by individuality, they can fall on that side. So let me go a little bit more. If it's too much all about you, if it's too much all about you, you may look at everybody from a different lens, okay? Where somebody that's driven by advancement may look at that person and say, oh, that person can one day be the COO of the company. This person can one day replace me and do better than me. That person is smarter than I am, right? And individuality has a hard time looking at others being better than them. So you have a hard time getting others to do the work because you don't think anybody can do it better than you. It is a flaw. It is a downside because no one can ever reach your point, which means you have a hard time delegating, because you have to do it all yourself. You have a hard time getting other people to rely on them. You have a hard time, it's got to be you, right? So you will look at most people sometimes as a pawn instead of a king and a queen if we're playing a game of chess. You'll see everybody as yeah, that person's going to help me do this, and that person's going to help me do this, and that person's going to advance me to this. But all you're thinking about is them. But God forbid if somebody could potentially be a king or a queen, it's a little bit bad for you. So rather than being a king maker and a queen maker, you're more about, I'm the only king of the jungle. Nobody else can be here but me. That's the challenging part about being driven by individuality. Sometimes the folks around you, they don't have enough energy because all of it's being suffocated because it has to all revolve around you rather than developing the leaders around you. That is a challenge and a downside for those that are driven by individuality. The other challenge with individuality is there could be shortcuts. There could be not positive shortcuts, but negative shortcuts that could end up getting somebody in trouble because you're like, I don't need to, I can just forge this. No, no, no. Let's go do it the right way. Nah, no one's going to know. I'm just going to forge this. No one's going to know this. No one's going to know I lost this file. It's okay. No one's going to know about, no, I just forget about it. We don't need to say this. You just kind of move on. You take too many shortcuts and it affects you and it hurts you long term, which eventually, if your vision is big and you're trying to do something big, the moment people around you start kind of getting that selfish radar up, which means nobody else around you can get recognition. Like I'll give you an example. One time I was working with a person many, many years ago. We're sitting in a meeting and we're ideating together, right? And I come up and I give idea after idea after idea. And one of the other girls gives an incredible idea. So her and I are sitting and say, wow, we came up with the best ideas. This was awesome. And then the stage comes and that individual we were working with, he goes on stage. And he says, my family and I have been spending the last, and not talking about us, meaning the husband, the wife, and we've been spending the last 2 months coming up with ideas, and here's what we came up with. And it was wrong, but we came up with these great ideas. You know who looked at who? I looked at her, the other girl that also came up with a great idea. She looks at me, and we just shook our head. You know what happened? Why are we going to share ideas? Because it's all about that person. And others can't coexist. And it's deflating, it's degrading. it just sucks all the energy out. So sometimes, if it's all about you getting the recognition, you may have a hard time losing talent around you that can help you go to the next level, because it's all about individuality. So that is the downside of individuality, and you got to be aware of it. And if you're aware of it and you start working on it, gradually this can turn around where people will sit there and say, wow, this person is actually thinking about me. So how do you do that? You may be saying, well, how do I do that? How do I do something like that? Well, rather than asking the question, what's in it for me? Why don't you start asking, what's in it for him? What's in it for her? What's in it for them? What's in it for this person? How can I help this guy? And it is an effort. So it is, because it's not a natural trait to most people, to some it is. Because it's not a natural trait, you may want to put it on your phone as a reminder. You may want to put it as an affirmation all over the place for you to be thinking about this. Because the person driven by individuality, who gets coached properly and makes the right adjustments and constantly replaces their goals and dreams over and over and over again, there really isn't a limit to how big this person gets. This person can be a billionaire, this person can be a president one day, this person can be one of the biggest senior pastors at a church, being a general of the military, running a massive department of 1,000 people. This person has such a big upside if they get to control that part. It's almost like this. Think about the feeling of anger. When we think about anger, what quotes do we hear about? Anger is one letter away from danger, like danger, anger, right? Oh, anger is this. But okay, let's just say you and I believe in God. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I choose to believe in God, right? If we do believe in God and He created everything, that means you also created the emotion anger. So why'd you give me the emotion anger? Why? Why'd you give me anger? To do what with it? Okay, what do you want me to do with anger? What quality give me? Why'd you give me quality of anger? You want me to hide it all the time? Is that what it is? Or is it the fact that it could create some kind of a rage inside that, if driven properly and concealed, can get this person to do things they wouldn't do on their own? So if you are working with somebody, or that's you, it's almost like your kids. If you're raising kids as a parent, sometimes kids just need to know mommy and daddy are capable. Capable of what? Capable of taking away toys, capable of no TV for a month, capable of, being grounded, capable of a lot of different things. And kids say, yeah, I'm not going to cross mom today. I'm not going to cross dad today. Why? Inside, you know what they're saying? She's capable. He's capable, right? So the individuality qualities that you may have that you're driven by could be very powerful if you use it the right way. And if you have somebody on your team that's driven by this, don't try to change them. Maybe ask them to take this course, but don't try to change them. Rather, see if you can get the best out of them by changing your strategies on how you approach this person. The results will be different. Another downside to individuality is this interesting concept, because most people that are driven by individuality, they're attractive. Their personality is attractive. They're charismatic. They have charm. They have something. You feel it. When they walk in, you know they're in the room. So what's the downside? Here's the downside. They have so many opportunities on a daily basis, they can rarely stay one place to build momentum. What does this mean? Oh, some guy flirts. Oh my God, this guy may be better than my current guy. Oh, some girl flirts. Oh, she must be better than my current girl. And it's constantly, what if? What if? Oh, he said I would be good in real estate. I'm going to leave, stocks and go to real estate. And then you do real estate for 3 years. You meet somebody because they're so, oh my God, I think you need to go into crypto, NFT, Bitcoins. Oh, because, oh my God, So they don't realize that everybody who compliments them, you're going to go to 2 years here, 3 years here, 4 years here, 5 years here, 2 years here, 3 years here. And then all of a sudden you're 58 years old, and all that individuality, talent, and charm and charisma that you had was never maxed out because you never put it in one place for 20 years. And that's what the great individualities do. They choose one industry and they go kill it. They choose one environment and they go kill it. And they don't fall for the temptation of everybody seducing you of how something could be better. The next great thing. Boom, 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 all over the place. So if that's you, you know exactly how many products have you sold in the last 10 years? How many companies have you had in the last 10 years? How many products have you sold in the last 10 years? How many products have you represented in the last 10 years? If you're somebody that's saying, oh man, I've done so many different things, maybe that's because you're so attractive that people are, and by the way, don't get too happy about this. Don't be like, oh my God, I am so attractive. That's a flaw that could work against you if you are so attractive, because people are constantly trying to seduce you to the next thing. If you're able to fight this temptation and you give it to one industry, game over. If you're able to, game over. But the odds are against you.